Part of the issue that they were having was that their infrastructure was costing them an awful lot, and it fell over all the time. What we were able to do, I was able to go to my manager, who was a accountant, I guess, by trade, and pitch him on my vision of where I wanted to take the organization based on saving some money. So we were able to call these guys in from VMware, roll out 2 servers, and systematically start imaging the servers that we had on hand, and be able to roll them out again as, you know, virtual machines. What that allowed us to do was then stop all of this failover, or falling over through having failover machines, and then as we started to transition more and more machines into this environment, we were able to just add more horsepower as we needed it. So it actually let us grow at a measured rate. We didn't have to do it all at once. It wasn't all out of pocket at once, but as we were moving machines over, we were able to discontinue paying for the SLAs on those machines. So our cost to operate was actually dropping as we were moving things across.
I think security in corporate data centers is lousy. So using security as a reason not to go to cloud is wrong. The average Canadian firm last year spent $1 million dealing with security breaches. The average security breach, I think, costs about $800,000 to fix by the time you've fixed the problem and you've notified clients and you've paid any penalties. So $1 million per Canadian firm. So security is table stakes. It's got to be there, whether it's inside or in the cloud. It's still got to be done. IT firms have been doing networking integration for years. I don't think the network is the problem. The question was, what's driving people to it? And every customer I talk to is about agility. We in IT have got to do security better. Most security breaches, something like 98%, occur on known bugs in known software that people haven't applied. So if people would just manage their patch management properly, most of the security stuff would disappear, and that's got nothing to do with cloud. You put an image in the cloud or in your data center, it's still got to be done properly. So proper management is table stakes. So that addresses security. Integration is what IT shops do. The network is not the problem. Agility is what drives people to the cloud, because the IT departments are taking too long to do it. So the lines of business are just going to the cloud to get it done.
It's important, though, to remember the size of the problem that you're dealing with as well, right? So if you look at the applications that customers are putting in today, about 85% of those applications are traditional, what we call traditional applications, and about 15% of those are more appropriate for kind of next generation applications, bimodal, and IT in that area. So it's important to pay attention to it. The Canadian number is actually more 90-10, 90% on traditional and 10% on modern applications. It's important because that 10% is growing very quickly, and that 10% is what is going to, in many cases, be the differentiator for your business. But bear in mind, it's 10%. So how do you make sure that you're able to serve your business and deliver something that can allow them to build on top of that at 10% while keeping the business running with the 90% of the other applications? And hybrid is an approach to do that. I think that what we need to do is be able to manage across all those things, because ultimately, while you're right, a lot of the spending is coming from the business line. Ultimately, the responsibility for those applications and the running of those applications, and if there is a breach, for example, comes back to IT. So you need to be able to manage all those things across that 90% and the 10%. And organizations that we're working with are doing that by having management tools that can look across both of those worlds and be aware of issues that are happening in both of those worlds, while recognizing that both of those worlds could be very different, right? It makes sense to put a container application in a different environment than you would put a 3-tiered web application, for example. But you need to have the smarts to move those applications around in your hybrid cloud, and you need to have the monitoring tools to be aware of any issues that are happening in both of those so that you can respond in an equal way to any issues that are coming up.
The basic premise is, how can we take these policies, how can we take these ideas and systematically, from an IT operations standpoint, decide what people can do. So I can, look at this group and say Malcolm is a developer, Dave is QA, and Peter is in charge of my production systems. Well, I only want Malcolm to have the ability to go on very small instances and only of certain sizes, maybe only on VMware. Dave, I want to allow him to do QA, but on a much broader set of architecture. But for production, well, I may want it in multiple zones. And so many times we hear from customers, it looked great in development, we went to QA, it went great, and we put it in production, and wow, and now we're rolling back. By putting technology, the cloud orchestration in place, you help create some predictability and reliability. You also can codify a lot of these best practices so that users can only have access to what they're allowed to use. So what's great is IT operations can do what they need to do from the governance standpoint, but I also want to create a self-service model so I am not hindering how users consume resources. They're not waiting 30 days to have their machines provisioned, but I'm dictating how and where they can provision things too. And what we see is huge impact. We have
you have to look at the entire process, and the process starts over here with the data, and it's both internal data and external data if you're truly looking at predictive analytics. Not only your relational structured data, but everything from social media data to emails and Word documents and the like. And then go through the transformation process, the ETL, the storage, either in a physical device or virtually, of all the components of your data lake. And then after that, your exploratory data analysis, and then you get into the finding the right area to apply your analytic lens. We call it asking the right question.
I like to think of it in the sort of the analogy of going on a trip. And you have those strategic, life-changing trips where you may not know where you want to go. And you get up in the morning and say, well, what's of interest to me today? And that's a very, very open type of approach. And that's where you need data visualization tools. That would be my analogy. Where do I want to go today? What are the patterns that are going to excite me or interest me and possibly bring a strategic change to what I'm going to do with my life or my business in this case? And then I think you have a little bit off from that. You sort of know where you want to go. I want to go see the Rocky Mountains, but I have a very specific thing I need to find as I'm doing it. I want to look through the trees. I want to find some patterns in that. And that's where data visualization and the data analysis, deep technology on data analytics, the more traditional data analytics comes in. Then you have people who they're going on their job, they're commuting, and every day, and I think of two different types of users. The IT users, they go on their daily job, and they want to have tools that allow them to do their jobs very well and are suited for the tool-based approach. Then you have the business user with a different lens, and they're going on their job, and really what they want to do is they want to understand how best can I do my business. And so for those types of users, we need to change that lens into a business-centric lens, and that becomes more of an application. So we have everything from the tools to what do I want to do today, through the tools to really getting down deep into the woods, and then getting into more of the prescribed approach to how I want to look at I know my questions, just give me the answers today from an IT-centric or a business-centric application.
there's really two places where you have to be careful with data. One is just more is not necessarily better as a competitive advantage. So it's not the company with the most data wins. It's the company that can do the most with what they've got that wins. So to say I'm going to gather all of Twitter and throw it into my data lake. Well, yes, you can do that. Why, I don't know. And if you don't know why, then you shouldn't be doing it. But it's really, avoiding analysis paralysis. And I think it goes back to what Jerry said. You have to ask the right questions and then make sure that the data can answer the questions. And if the data can answer the questions, then that's an indication to you that, okay, I need more data or I don't have the right data. And that leads to further investigations in the system. And I think from a competitive advantage, if I can ask the right questions and get the answers from my system, then I have a competitive advantage. But more importantly, if I know the right questions to ask, then that gives me a competitive advantage.
Part of this Armageddon is like due to very basic facts like, according to scientists, speed of light is not getting faster, right? So we've gotten amazingly close to, theoretical best latency, scenarios for, global traffic. And at this point, we're playing with protocols and traveling salesman type algorithms to figure out how to make things better. But we can add more lanes to the highway, but it's like we're having trouble shortening those highways. So there's a few things that work as strategies that help with this, and it highlights why location is such an important thing in the cloud. I mean, the real estate market, understands location. They have that location. I'd add a fourth for cloud because a lot of people are like, oh, it's just up in the cloud, so it doesn't really matter where it is. Well, it turns out it matters far more than it ever did before. The data center market is being transformed because large clouds have enormous gravity, and economically, you want to be as close as possible to connect directly with those cloud providers if you're going to be consuming them. So this has big implications for, of course it is networking related, but it has implications for where you choose to co-locate, how you interconnect. I mean, Equinix actually had done some really interesting stuff early on. A friend of mine, Sam Johnson, sort of worked on a cloud interconnect, fabric for data centers. And I think that's the future. The future is you can't make the networks necessarily faster and cheaper. You need to bring some of these pieces closer together.
As the enterprise becomes more sophisticated or more mature in their use of cloud services, and they bring more on board, they may need to invest in additional on-ramp capability, so additional connectivity. Is there a tipping point that you notice? When do customers go from that single application where they have a discrete ROI that they can point to needing to make a bigger investment in their networking infrastructure?
Yeah, I think that someone starts, or a company starts looking at the cloud and they want to put their dip their toe in the water, it's usually with a little intrepidation and some risk aversion, because they're looking at either a loss of control or it could be a security issue they have, and they're not entirely sure, I'm speaking from an IT perspective, that this is the way they want to go full bore, so they try something small and then grow from there. Usually it could be pressure or a battle of the business units. It could be sales or marketing coming in with a CRM or an ERP or a Salesforce automation tool, something like that is pushed out and integrated in, if you will, and allows that to get going. I think I like to approach the question more in a business sense than a technology perspective. I think it's really important that when any companies are looking at integrating anything into the cloud, they have some defined criteria to evaluate what they're trying to do. And a lot of it is so they'll see, they can evaluate through a trial or through any business efficiencies, through scalability, elasticity,
Their sales reps are becoming more efficient because they're more connected and they have more access to information. There's a whole bunch of them. But I think it's important that there is a group put together, some resources that are assigned to evaluate somebody's or some department's initiative. That will help gain that kind of internal inertia to get the next thing going and the next thing going. And then what that'll do, at the end of the day, we're all here to sell more stuff, whatever the stuff is. And I think that what that allows to do is it gets people at certain positions to notice, i.e. CFOs or CEOs and people of money and influence, to support other initiatives as it goes forward.
We talk about, I talked a lot about, SD-WAN and all those great technologies that are coming to market, but at the end of the day, it's still very immature, right? I mean, and I think we're still a couple of years out from a situation where an organization can really say, I understand what my ROI is. I understand what the internal skill sets that I need in my organizations are versus what I'm going to rely on a third party to help me with. And really understand what that investment looks like and what are the impacts on your security posture, what are the impacts on your capacity planning, what are your impacts on your cloud and IoT strategies. So it's a difficult question to answer today as to sort of what an organization should do and how you should plan what are the skill sets you need, because I think there still needs to be sort of a couple more evolutions of this technology maturing, and organizations, whether it's a cloud provider, whether it's a UC provider, whatever that technology might be, there's going to be a convergence, right? And there's going to be sort of this emergence of a standard. But I think today it's a very different.
Resolve. Technology has an enormous impact on business. Cloud has an enormous impact on technology, and therefore senior executives need to understand the economics of cloud and hybrid IT.
Senior executives are now starting to look at the cost per employee, how to enable their employees, how to move and shift those costs. We start with our customers by helping them measure where they are today, what's their spend per employee, and then continue to measure that over a 12 to 24-month engagement process as they move to the cloud. So we're able to come back now and say that people are seeing 40 to 50% cost savings on commoditized cloud workloads. So it depends on the type of workload you're looking at, and you have to evaluate each workload independently for each service that IT provides to the business. But there's services that need to move there quickly, and those have huge ROI. But it's all breaking it down so that it's easily digestible in a graph. So visualize it for people so they can see it.
It's really just a question of at Cloud Ops. If this is a question of analyzing costs, I think and it's really about cost center economics. I think we actually miss the economics of cloud entirely. For two reasons. One is, I'm not saying that you don't need to do that. You absolutely need to do that. You need to be good at it, and you need to understand how your CapEx shifts to OpEx and all that. But the really interesting aspect of cloud economics is really more on what it enables a business to achieve in terms of top line versus bottom line. I think software businesses have already obviously realized that. They're in the business of doing that. I think a lot of enterprises are in various states of starting to realize that they are also software-driven organizations. And that's not to say that, and I'm not just talking about Microsoft, I'm talking about, definitely you've got to use common off-the-shelf components. You've got to, there's things that you do as a business that are going to be the same as what gets done in all kinds of other businesses, not even maybe in the same vertical. But then I think a lot of businesses are realizing that there is differentiated advantage to be built and sustained through building software and technology. And so
realistically, a lot of the businesses that are around right now won't be around in 10 years if they don't recognize that there's going to be a lot of changes. So I think it is more a matter of, I do agree with you that it's much more a matter of cost. It's a matter of transformation. The competitors that we've got are obviously all the big banks, but then so many startups that are coming on, like the retail market's changing tremendously, the capital markets are obviously changing tremendously as well. And without the data and the agility to make the changes quickly, we will erode in terms of profitability, our costs will be flat but not sustainable, and our shareholder value will be reduced.
And so how does cloud address that problem? What can you do with cloud that helps to ensure that you won't be one of the companies that's gone in 10 years?
So there's an element of, and this is looking at it from an internal cloud perspective, there's an element of standardization of technology practices so that in terms of containerization, deployment practices, and things of this nature, to manage applications more nimbly and leave the doors open in terms of infrastructure changes and hardware changes, data center moves, et cetera, so you can avoid that brittleness in many respects at the lowest level, and then working all the way up through the DevOps and agile deployment, which more rapid changes will let you fail more quickly, try more things out, and respond to business changes more quickly. So I think it's the whole cycle, and then the changes that are happening in the industry in this regard are all essential here.